Hello, I am Kyatric, and today I'm making this video for the Construct 2 Academy. Here is the project we are doing, a keyboard custom controls project that is going to have a simple play layout in which we control a character with a keyboard, with the set elements of our keyboard, and a menu that we control with the keyboard as well, and that allows us as well to go to the controls, which is a specific layout in which we can set the key to use. You can see currently that the key to control the move right action is the right arrow key. To move down, it's the down key, left key, and move up key. To validate, it's the enter or return key, and to shoot, it's the S key on the keyboard. So let's press enter, for example. You see that you are asked to press the key you would wish to shoot. So for the action shoot, let's replace it. For example, I'm pressing the F key on my keyboard. And now the shoot action has been modified so that it's the F key that is going to allow it to shoot. If I go down again, I can cancel. Cancel will allow me to go back to my menu right away without saving my choices. The S key is back to the key for shooting. So now let's modify it. Confirm. I validate again, and when I play, I'm pressing the F key and it does the shooting. And now I'm refreshing the project, pressing the F5 key, so that's the same as closing the application and executing it again. And if I go into the controls, you can see that the F key is still the key used to shoot. So in that project we are going to see how to handle the item selection with our keyboard. I'm just pressing the up and down key at the moment, and you see that it goes through the different items of the menu. Same on the main menu. I'm pressing the down key and the up key, and you can also see that it displays by default the little arrows icon there, up and down to select an option, and enter to validate your choice. This is something that has been automated, and same in the display in our control. And finally, the set keys are the keys that are being used when I'm moving my character and playing the game. So now let's see how to make that project in Construct. Open up Construct, click on New Project and New Empty Project. It is a very simple project. I'm not providing assets for this one because you will mostly have to adapt it to your own project and your own games. It's just to show you the logic and some of the elements you will need. So we start with a blank layout. Hold down the Control key, use your mouse wheel to zoom in and zoom out. We will have to make 3 layouts. Our main layout, we will rename it to screen title. It's going to be our entry point, if you want, into our game, and is going to be where the menu is at that allows you to play or go and set the control. Actually, the event sheet 1 is the event sheet that is tied to this layout, so let's rename it ES screen title. So this way we will remember what event sheet is tied to what layout. Let's make our layout size the same as our project size, so 854 by 480. 854 by 480. You can see that it's set to the very size of our project. We can change the name of our project, keyboard custom controls. It's always nice to rename things. make the description, put the name of the author, email, website, etc., all the required informations. And we'll start up by adding a few elements to our layout. We're going to first add a sprite that is going to be simply our logo, and we will rename the sprite to logo. Place it about in the middle. That's about it. Then we do add another sprite to our project, and this time it's going to be a couple of frames. So we import frames from file. You can see that I've made my button play, button controls as images. So let's go with that. And we want the play button to be the first. So frame 0 and frame 1 is going to be the controls. Click the default animation and change the speed to 0, so that the way the images won't switch and will only display one frame at a time, and we are then using our sprite object as a bank of images. Lastly, make sure that the collision polygon is set to bounding box. In our frames, by default it should be the case, but it's always nicer to make sure. So now let's rename our object button menu. Holding down the control key, drag dropping it, we are allowed to make a new instance, and for this new instance we are going to change the initial frame from 0 to 1. And finally we go back into the sprite, we go into the origin point and the image point, and we are going to create a new image point and press the 4 key on our numeric keyboard. That will place our image point straight on the left of the image, of the texture. Right click on the image point, apply to whole animation, which will then create another image point on the left at the very same position, and it would do so for any frames we would have in our animation. This is going to be used to set the position of our marker. Let's make sure that our objects are aligned. They do have the same X position, which is okay in our case. So let's make yet another sprite, and this time it's a marker. So I've just made a little 32 by 32 image of a triangle, and I will then position the origin point for this one by pressing the 6 key on my keyboard. Come on, 6, which places it on the right, and it's going to be the position of my object. Rename it as marker, and we're almost set for the menu. We still need to add a text object that we're going to position at the bottom. We make it bigger, so any text we want to display in it is going to be displayed. So that's it for the screen title layout itself. Yet we are going to add a few more objects to our project right now. We'll start by adding an array that we will rename right away and name it A keys, and this array is going to keep in memory our custom controls. We do also need to add a keyboard object, since it's going to be our main input. So insert it, add the function object, we are going to use it in our event sheet. And finally, we need to add the local storage object, which is going to allow us to save on the hard drive the keys we have set and the modifications of the user, even when he is exiting the application and coming back to it later. Now let's add a new layout with an event sheet, and we are going to name this layout options. Its size is going to be the same as our project, 854 by 480. Control and mouse wheel to zoom in and zoom out. We are going to add a new text object that we are going to rename into txt keys. Moreover, this txt key object needs an instance variable that we are going to name id, and that will allow us to be able to pick the specific instance we are going for. Another modification to make is to set the vertical alignment to center and to modify our hotspot so that it's on the left. Enlarge our text object, use the control key, drag drop, and make new instances. We need 6 and 2 more, but the 2 last instances are going to be shorter, and we are going to set some text to them. As well, we are going to modify for each instance the ID number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. That's for our 6 main text objects, which are going to display our 6 main actions. The movement for the 4 first, validation, and the shooting. Then our ID 6 is going to be cancel, and our ID 7 is going to be confirm. This layout is very much up to you on how you want to set it up according to your project. You may want, instead of text object, to use sprites. You could use the very same technique using an instance variable to be able later on to pick it specifically. And we are going to drag drop a couple of elements from our object types that we already made. One is going to be the marker, and the other one is going to be the text object. You can notice that I haven't really aligned the objects, the text objects, and this is because I will be doing it in the event sheet itself. Talking about event sheet, be sure to rename ES options to know that this is the event sheet that is tied to the options layout. Cancel and confirm, though, need to be on the same Y position. So let's put it at 427, or you can just put it really like you want. It's a matter, it just really depends on your project. I thought it was nicer in this one. And finally, we add yet a new layout with its event sheet, and this layout is going to be named game. I have the event sheet renamed as ES game as well, but for this one we won't change the size of the layout. We'll simply add a few objects to it. Resize by 32 by 32, put a color you want, and this is going to be our wall object with a behavior solid. Just resize it to the limits of our layout, create a new instance that goes on the right of our layouts, and yet a new instance that is going to be our ground. That is just going to make sure that our little character we are about to create for our little platformer game is not going to just fall down and allow us to test it. At this point, the game layout is really specific to your game, so it's just an example right now, a quick example. Make another sprite, 32 by 32, change the color, and this is going to be our platform, and it's going to have the behavior jump through. Here we go. And just positions platform as you want on your layouts accordingly to what you believe will work and what you will need. The jump through behavior is going to allow us to have a use for the down key, which is that when the character is sitting on top of it and we are pressing the down key, or we want to move down, the character is going to jump through the platform and fall onto the next platform, or at worst on our ground. And finally, just add a new sprite object, 32 by 32, and it is going to be our character, so I'm just filling it quickly and setting a kind of eye on it. That's our character, and it's going to have the behavior platform. We add, and the only modification we do to the configuration is to change the default controls from yes to no, because we will want to use the user inputs. And finally, as our character can shoot, we are going to add an image point, set it on the right, and create our last object, which is going to be 8 by 8. Fill it with a color and add a couple of behaviors, which are going to be destroy outer side of layout and bullet, because it's a bullet that is moving. Rename it to bullet, and we also want to add a behavior scroll to our character, so that the camera is always going to be focused on our character in our layout, which is more than a single screen. So that's the game layout, and that's all the objects we need for now. Now let's see how to handle our keyboard custom controls within the event sheet. So we are going to start up with our screen title. We go into our event sheet, ES screen title, and we are going to need to make a few global variables to start with. Our first one is going to be named menu selected, and by default is 0. Then I'm going to add a global variable, make it constant, which means that I'm never going to be able to change the value of that variable, and that its name is always going to be in capital letters. I will name my first variable key move right, and it's going to be 0. Holding down the control key, I can drag drop, it creates another variable right away, and this one is going to be moved down and change the number to 1. And you can see that even if I'm writing in not capital letters, it will automatically be changed to capital letters. Our next variable is move left and its value is 2. Then move up for a value of 3. And you see that we have our 4 main actions, which are to move right, down, left and up. We add yet another, which is validate. This time its value is 4, and key shoot, and its value is 5. It will allow us to have a more readable event sheet on many levels. I still need 2 global variables right now, although I will change to k key code, which will be of value 1, and the key label, which is going to be of value 0. I'll come back to it later. It's going to be important to have. We'll start by adding an event, and our event is going to be on start of layouts. What do I want to do on start of layouts? I want to position my marker objects, and I want to set its position to another object, which is going to be my button menu, and to the image point 1. Also, for further tidying, I want to set the value of menu selected to 0 when I'm starting. This way my marker there is going to be positioned to the image point of that instance, about here, every time I start this layout, and even when I'm coming back from another layout. And so on my menu, what will I want? I will want to handle the input of my player. I will want that when the player is pressing the key for the move up action or the key for the move down action, it places the marker accordingly on one or the other instance, because I only have 2 of them. To do so, we set a new event keyboard, and we are going to have on key code pressed. The key code is, instead of setting directly the letter, as you can be used to if you already have saw some other example of how to use the keyboard object in construct, is going to allow me to set a numeric value that is tied and it is equivalent to a key of my keyboard. Bear with me for now, we'll come back to it later and you will see how it's working exactly. So for now, where will I get this value from is from my akeys.at array, which is going to be an array of 2 dimensions. One dimension, the x dimension, is going to be related to the action, so key move down, and the other dimension, the y dimension, is going to be either a key code, so k key code, or k label. For now I want the key code. So this event there means that when I'm pressing the key that is supposed to move down, I will have some action happening. Let's add a comment right now. Input moving down. And what I will want to do is to set the value of menu selected to menu selected plus 1. But if I only do that, it means that the second time that I'm pressing my key down, menu selected will have gone from 0 to 1, and then from 1 to 2, and then from 2 to 3, etc., etc., which could be useful, but the thing is that we only have 2 frames right there, and that's what we are going to relate menu selected, its value to the actual frame of the object. So we actually will add parenthesis, add the percentage sign, which acts as a modulo operation, that's mathematics, and set to 2 because we only have 2 elements. And this expression will mean that our value is going to be 0, 1, and when it's reaching the value number 2, it's actually changed this value to make it again the value 0. And so it will kind of loop automatically this way. That's one use of the modulo in this case. And I will want to add an action that we are yet to write that we'll name setMarker. Let's create setMarker right away. So on function setMarker, be sure that the name you are calling is the exact same name you are setting there. Capital letters are important because setMarker with a capital S is not the same as setMarker with not a capital S. And in setMarker, we'll want to create a sub-event. So either we press the S key of our keyboard, or you can create it by right-clicking on your mouse button and on the event and add a sub-event. And this sub-event is going to be button menu compare frame is equal to menu selected. And again, I'm simply holding down the control key on my keyboard, drag dropping the action, it's going to clone it, and we are going to set the position of our marker object to the button menu object. Remember, menu selected is going to be either 0 or 1, and our instances are of frame either 0 or 1. And in the same order of ID, I will hold down the control key, drag drop the event for moving down, and I will modify so that it's when I'm moving up. And when I'm moving up, I will actually want to set menu selected to menu selected -1. In this case, though, we can't use the modulo, so we have to make a sub-event that checks if our menu selected value is less than 0. If it's -1, then I'm actually setting menu selected to be my maximum value, which is 1 in our case, since we only have 1 there frame. Keep that in mind for later because we are going to come back to it. Create a blank sub-event now. Right click or press the B key and actually set our setMarker in it. Because it's not going to be every time that menu selected value is less than 0. So putting it in there wouldn't make really sense. And we can't call this function before we have actually set exactly the value of menu selected. So creating a blank sub-event will always execute whenever the action, the key is being pressed, and it will allow us to call the setMarker. It would be nice if I could check it out right now, right? But currently my array A keys doesn't contain anything. So let's change that. Let's modify this as well, this comment, by moving up. So how do I feel my array? On the long term, we'll want this to be automated, and that's where the local storage is going to come in handy. So in our start of layout, we will be adding a new action, which is local storage, and is going to be named check item exists. We name the key KCC, keyboard custom control, underscore keys. Can notice that I'm not using capital letters. You could use capital letters, like for the name of the function and any string of character that is between two quotes in construct. You have to make sure that you are using the very same format consistently over your project. And so this action on start of layout is going to check that a key or an item in the local storage does exist. There are two possibilities out of this action. It will either trigger a condition on item exists, which means that there is already a saved file and it does exist. Or another one, which we are going to fill right now. You can see, so on item exists or on item missing. And right now we will start with item is missing, and which is kcc.keys. And by default, when you are first executing your game for the very first time on any computer, this key is missing, it doesn't exist. So that's where we are going to set default values. To do so, we set the size of our A keys array. We set it to 6 because we have 6 actions, and 2, it's going to be our label and key code. And we start filling it. So A keys set at X and Y. Our X is always going to be one of the actions, so let's start with the action 0. And instead of just letting our number here x0, we are going to use our constant variable moveRight. And so we will know that moveRight is always going to be our first action and is going to be an element of our array. And we want to set its label to start with to a string of character, which is moveRight. Using the control key, drag dropping, I will change this time to key code, but right now we don't know exactly what our number is, so I will set 20 by default, but we will modify it later and I will show you how to make sure what key code to go for. Let's create the rest of our action. So again, I'm only having 6 actions in my game, so I'm only making 6 actions into my array. But if your game would have more controls, more actions possible that required more keys to be configured, don't hesitate to make as many keys and actions as you need and store them into the array. And now let's also set our text object text by default to keyboard.string from key. That is an expression that is available from the keyboard object, and string from key code takes a parameter which is a numeric value, and in our case it's going to be our array at keys at key move up and key code. So with this expression, I'm actually displaying a string, so a character, according to a key code, which is actually the key code that I've set to be the key code, the corresponding key for the move up action. And so by default, it's going to be the up arrow. So I'm now concatenating and putting some text, or, and I will copy this and modify actually to move down, because the actions on the menu is either to go up or go down. So either the up key or the down key, and open up the quotes to select an option from our menu, closing the quotes, and add a new line, so it goes to the line, and yet again pasting my keyboard action, and this time it's going to be the key validate. So enter by default, enter, and to validate your choice. I've missed a Greek end here to concatenate. So this action will by default display some text on start of my project. I would end up right now by saving the keys, but I will keep it for later. I still want to be able to preview my project right now, and again, we still don't know what key code to use. So to remedy that, we are going to make a temporary modification. We add an event, keyboard, on any key pressed. We are going to add an action that our text is going to be displaying the keyboard last key code. So it's going to be displaying a numeric value that will be equivalent to the last key I have pressed on my keyboard. Let's preview right now. So you can see by default that apparently 20, the key code we have set for now, is the caps lock key. And you can see that it's being displayed in full letters, even though I haven't put it in. And it's the result of our keyboard.string from key code expression. It's working. But now I want to know the value for the up, right, down and left arrows. So pressing the up arrow, 38, right, 39, down 40, left 37. So left 37, 38, 39, 40. Now I know my key code. I can set it into my code. So let's modify it. Move right is 39. Down is 40. Left is 37. And up is 38. And this is how you can find out what key code is equivalent to what key in an empiric manner by displaying it yourself. But be aware that you can also do a simple Google search, and one of the first results you will get is the JavaScript car code's key code. And it allows you to see exactly what key is equivalent to what number, what key code. So let's finish up. I know that validate is the enter key is the value 13, and shoot, which is by default S, is 83. Back to my preview. Now you can see that instead of quote up arrow, I directly have a symbol up and down. And if I'm pressing the up key, it's also moving my marker. It's also changing my text because I still have that event in place. But it also allowed me to move my marker. And if I press the up key again, it's getting back to the play object. And if I go down, it's moving and it's working. Let's add a comment right there. Controls were not found on the disk. Assuming this is the first execution of our game, creating default controls. And actually now we are going to add the action local storage set item, and the key is still KCC keys, the very same as we have used so far, and the value is actually going to be akeys dot as JSON. So it's going to actually save the content of the array directly into our hard drive. So that's when the key is missing, and from now on we are going to save that key. But what does happen when the key exists? The same. KCC keys does exist. We get rid of all those actions because they are irrelevant. Almost. We can keep the text because we are still going to be displaying that. But another action that we are going to set this time is akeys load, and we are going to load from local storage item value, because when an item exists, its item value is available right away, so we can load our array from it. So from now on, when I will be executing my game, the first time when the key doesn't exist, and it wasn't so far because I hadn't yet this action, it's going to set a set of default controls, and we are going to load them once the key does exist. So our final inputs, the final thing that our user can do, so we will get rid of any key pressed for now, because apparently we have all the key codes we need, so we don't need it anymore. And the last action, the last input from our user, is to actually press the validate key. So inputs, validate, and change key, validate. When we are validating on the menu, there are only two options possible. We either going to play, so we are going to go to our game layout, or we are going to set our controls, that is to say, go to our options layout. How to know what item is being selected? Well, simply by comparing the value of menu selected. When it's 0, we want to go to the layout game. And when on the opposite, menu selected is equal to 1, we want to go to options. And that's it. That's everything we need in our screen title for it to work. Now the big game is going to happen in the option layout. open up our ES options event sheet. We'll want to add a global variable named key selected, and it's going to work pretty much as our menu selected variable, although this time it's going to allow us to know which text object, which instance we are being between 0 and 7. And so on start of layout, as usual, we'll want to also display some stuff into the text object like we did for the menu. And so we start with setting the text of the text object, and we set it to, again, keyboard dot string from key code and keys dot add key validate key code. And to modify, open the quotes, to modify the key. But again, like in our menu, we are assuming that the user is used, and we'll use the up and down arrows to navigate. We actually should likely just kind of copy it from our previous layout. And new line, and to select an action to assign a key to, and to modify the key. And like for our menu, we set the value to 0 by default, so that this way it's going to always be pointing or selecting the first object when we start up. That's not all we do in our start of layout. We are going to want to align the text object, the text keys objects, instances. So do a system for each txt keys, and we are going to add a local variable named py, which is just a temporary variable and a y position that we are going to keep in memory, and the initial value is actually going to be 40. And we want to add another condition, so either you right click add or press the C key on your keyboard, and we only want to pick or align the txt keys object which ID is less than 6, because remember, ID 6 is our cancel and confirm, and we have set those up. We don't want to move them. And so there, we set the X position to 85. We set txt keys Y position to PY, and for the next instance we are going to add to PY the current txt keys dot height plus 12. Just found out that adding the height and 12 pixels made what I wanted out of the objects. And for each one we are now going to set the text of txt keys to akeys dot add txt keys dot id, so our current identifier, and the K label. So it's going to display what type of action it is supposed to be. So move right, move left, etc. And 2 points, and this time keyboard dot string from key code a keys at, once again, txt keys dot id and the key code. And this bit of text is going to display the action, 2 points, and the actual key that is being set. And it's going to do it by default for our 6 first txt keys objects, those ones, and align them at the same time. And we will finally finish with a blank sub-event, be key, and set the marker to the position of the txt keys object. Well, this time actually it's not set to another, it's set position directly, and we want to set the position to txt keys dot x on the left, minus 16 because it's on the left, and we want to set it to the same y position as the txt key. And so by default it's going to do the trick. And pretty much like in our previous screen, in the screen title, we want to handle the move down and move up and the validation. So for now we're just going to copy those events because they are very similar and modify them accordingly. So instead of menu selected, we're going to change to key selected plus 1, and this time instead of 2 we're going to go to 8 because we do have 8 elements in the end. Our option, we do have 8 instances, so to scroll through all of them our modulo is on 8 this time. And we'll change and make a new function that we are going to name set marker keys, because it's not exactly the same function as we used in our previous form, but otherwise the condition is the same, and there the same as well. Menu is changed to key selected. When key selected is less than 0, we want key selected to be up to 7, because that's our max value, and set marker keys. So let's do set marker keys right away. Pretty similar to set marker, so we go Ctrl C and Ctrl V to copy and paste it, and this time instead of the button menu though, we go back and it's going to be the txt keys object. That ID we are going to pick by its ID, which is supposed to be equal to key selected. And when it's the case, we actually want to copy that action, set its position according. Thanks to this condition, only a single instance is going to be selected, and this action is going to position the object in relation to the picked txt key instance. And so modify set marker keys. And finally we want to go and validate as well again, so copy, paste, input validate, but this time we change, it's not menu selected, it's key selected, and if it's key selected is less than 6, so if it's one of our actions, what are we going to do? We are going to set the text to press the key you would wish to and add the a keys dot at key selected key label. We don't want to go to the game, obviously. But at this point we are going to expect the user to press a key, and it's going to set this key, thanks to its key code, and tie it to an action, the action that is labeled right there, so either move right, move left, etc. So now we do have an issue though. If, for example, you are pressing a key and pressing a key that is set for another action, this other action is also going to happen. So if we were, like, for example, pressing the down key after having validating, it would validate the key as down key for the action that we were setting, but it would also move down the selection and set the marker to the next object. So we will have to make sure that this doesn't happen. And to do so, we add a global variable that we name waiting input, and its default value is 0. That's nice. For this event, we go back, add a condition, and we want waiting input to be equal to 0. Same for the key code, and same for the validation. But now it also means that when a key is to be modified, I change the value of waiting input to 1, which means that those actions won't happen even though I'm using the very same key. It's also be useful to process our new key. This we are going to do right now by adding an event keyboard on any key pressed, but also making sure that waiting input is equal to 1. And when this happens, we set the value key selected key code to keyboard dot last key code. We do change the numeric value right there. We also do change our text, go back to our default text, but we are also going to need to select the txt keys objects, well, the instance id key selected, the one we've just modified the key for, and like there, make it display the new key. We are then going to have a blank sub-event. We are going to wait 0 seconds, which is actually going to make us wait and skip just 1 frame of execution to change back waiting input to 0, meaning we have modified our key and our key code, so now we go back to normal. That's what happens when we are setting a new key. And finally, we need to modify what happens when key selected, when we validate actually that we are cancelling. So key selected equal to 6, and we are going to add a system else condition, moving it up, and we simply go to screen title. We just go back and don't modify anything. But on the same order of ID, when key select is 7, which is confirmed, we actually want to save the local storage. So we set item kcc keys to akeys dot as JSON, like we have done when we set our default value. Nevertheless, we also want to go back, but local storage is asynchronous, which means that there is a difference between the time you are setting this action and the time that the action is actually happened, so on item sets. And that's where we will want to set our KCC keys set, and that's where we are going to move back to our screen title. It's going to execute that action, take the time of saving those information. The game is still happening. This is being saved in the background. So for our keys, it's a very small amount of informations that are being saved. So it's not a big deal. It just happens, it seems to happen as soon as it is going on. But actually, you need to delay it a bit by handling the fact of going to the next layout, or simply saving, making sure that the keys are saved by using this condition, this event. And that's actually it for our options. Let's just modify the new key. Let's go back to our screen title, or either right click on our project name, run project. So I'm using the up and down key, it's still working. Now if I press enter key, I will go into my controls. It does display the label of the action and the key itself. Move right is the right key, move down is the down key, move left, up, validate is enter, shoot is S. You can see that we also have our text there telling us what to do, and when we go down, cancel, confirm, and we can cycle through. So if I do cancel, for example, press validate, I just go back to my previous layout. No big deal. Let's modify, for example, move right, and I want to press the D key. So now, move right is going to be assigned to my D key. Let's confirm that. If I go back into controls, you can see that it's been saved and it's being displayed as intended. Cancel. And now we are going to see how to make the play layout and how in the play layout to handle our controls. And pretty much we already have done it. Remember, there are only a few actions that we will need to handle through the ES game event sheet. It's simply add an event, keyboard, key code is down, and key code is a keys dot add key move down, for example, and our key code. And so that's for the key down, and when the key is down, we want the character to fall through. That's it. That's pretty much it. We clone the event, move down, we go to move up, and when we are moving up, we actually want the character to simulate a control, because that's what the platform behavior allows us to, jump. We clone, move right. We are going to simulate that we are going on the right, and we are also setting the mirrored, that it's not mirrored when it's going to the right, but on the opposite when it's going left. We're simulating that we are going left, and the sprite is to be mirrored, looking to the left. And finally, last action, on key code pressed, because I don't want to be able to keep on it, but pretty much the same, a keys dot add key shoot. Key code. I'm creating an object, bullets. On my layer 0, character dot image point x 1. Remember, we have created an image point from which the character is going to be able to shoot from, and add a sub-event in which we check if the character is mirrored. And when the character is mirrored, we actually want the bullet angle of motion to be 180 degrees to go to the left. That's it. That's our basic inputs that handle the user's custom controls. So let's check it out. I've pressed the wrong... I was on the game layout. Let's preview from the keyboard custom, from the screen title. So remember, move right is D, there, right, cancel, play, and I'm pressing the right arrow right now. It's not working, but the up arrow is working, down fall through, D makes it going to the right, and the left arrow makes it going to the left. So we have set our custom controls, and it's working pretty much as intended. Last thing to finish up. So in our options, when we are validating that our key selected is inferior to 6, so that we are setting the key code, we are setting a key for an action, add a sub-event txt keys compare instance variable id equal to key selected. So it's taking the current instance, and I will want to simply set the text of the instance to a keys dot add key selected key label and 3 interrogation mark. This allows us to have more feedback for the user. Move right is now expecting a key. Press the key you would wish to move right. Go back to the right arrow, confirm, play, and it's working. And I'm shooting bullets by pressing the S key. That's a way for you to do custom controls for your keyboard, for your games. I hope you have enjoyed this video. Don't hesitate to check out some of the other Construct2 Academy material. Thank you for watching.